Back in 2013, I was thoroughly miffed when Nokia eschewed such niceties as card expansion and battery replacement, hey, this was 6 years ago, for its Lumia 1020, definitely limited in some ways as a smartphone, also having an old and slow processor. But with the standout camera of its age, for which benefit I forgave it any shortcomings and used it for well over a year. The 1020 with its giant 40 megapixel sensor and OIS optics produced exceptional images, oversampled down to reduce all noise, or when zooming allowed a genuine 2.5 times lossless zoom. Wonderful! And the Lumia 1020 is still competitive today, I'd argue, imaging wise. My slinky link from this to the Huawei P30 Pro is of course that Eero Selmerlin, head of imaging at Huawei, was one of the Lumia 1020's creators, and with the addition of OIS to a modern 40 megapixel phone camera, he's back in business, even extending the concept to include a radical red, yellow, yellow, blue pixel sensor layout rather than red, green, green, blue. Keep up at the back. A 5 times telephoto lens, also with OIS, and a wide angle camera, all slinkily linked in the UI and with their output variously fused, right up to a claimed 50 times hybrid image zoom. Now there are minor issues here and there in terms of fusing, focusing and colour, as mentioned in a moment, but nothing a software update or two won't improve. And the TLDR here is that the P30 Pro isn't just the latest product of Huawei marketing hype, as you might have feared. I wasn't in Paris, by the way. I didn't get wined and dined. And I have to confess, I did accept a sandwich from Motorola once, but that's by the by. The P30 Pro is in fact the most potent imaging phone I've used in my life. And unlike the Lumia 1020, it's got all the latest modern internals. So it's lightning fast, has a great screen, oodles of storage and super battery life, plus those cameras. The P30 Pro is powered by a Kirin 980 chipset with 8GB of RAM, and my review handset has 256 gigabytes of storage, which you can expand with Huawei's proprietary SIM-shaped nano memory standard. But come on, isn't microSD the standard after 15 years in the phone world? It's jolly fast anyway. Like the Lumia 1020, something has to give if you want a big camera system, and in this case it's the 3.5mm audio jack, which is nowhere to be seen. And for once I'm giving Huawei a pass. I've looked around the unit, and given the camera space, and don't forget that periscope camera, and the 4200 mAh battery, I'd agree that there really isn't room in the unit in the P30 Pro. Not that I'm excusing other jack-dropping brands with far less to fit in, mind you. Down at the bottom is an OK speaker, clear and not too tinny. Here's a demo. This is Muse featuring the Edge. It's not the loudest in the world, not the bassiest, but hey. Again, I'll cut Huawei some slack. There isn't really room for a speaker of any size up top to create a stereo effect. In fact, there isn't even room for an earpiece around the selfie camera notch, so, quote, electromagnetic levitation is apparently used. Effectively a powered magnet vibrating receptive elements underneath the cover glass to vibrate the entire top of the display. It works, it just doesn't work loudly enough to be part of a stereo speaker pair. But yet again, everything's a workaround to make room for the 3 large main cameras, plus their time-of-flight laser autofocus system. And the results are worth it. The main camera can produce super results from bright sunshine to very low light indeed. Plus it allows lossless zoom to 2 times, and then above 3 times, in theory, the centre of the image is fused with detail from the 5 times telephoto, except that in my tests I don't think Huawei's quite got the software right yet. But the potential's there. Above 5 times, which is crystal clear with the telephoto and good light, everything's a computed compromise again, but often with very good results. See the examples here. There are many others online, of course. This is a very well reviewed camera system. In low light, the telephoto is excluded, as you'd expect, and everything's done on the main sensor, outputting 10 megapixel by default. Test video here on the P30 Pro. Now, a pretty normal video shot, you may say. Water gently rippling, leaves blowing in the breeze, except that was 10 times zoomed. This is the wide shot with the wide angle lens, and then if we go into 1 times, that's the standard view. 5 times is just the telephoto, and then 10 times is telephoto plus the 40 megapixel sensor all factored in. And that's pretty darn good. I'm on a tripod here just for ease of seeing what's going on. but the quality at 10 times, this is at 1080p, which is the resolution of my show. This is pretty darn good. There is a swan coming into view. Again, 10 times. Go to wide angle, 1 times, and 5 times, just the telephoto, which is probably the optimum for most shooting scenarios, I'd say. One last zoom test, that boat in the distance. 5 times and 10 times. You can see what they're up to. Read the boat name. 10 times zoom on a fairly shallow smartphone. That's pretty impressive. Now back to wide angle and 1 times. Again, stabilization, EIS and OIS. Steadicam smooth. Very, very impressive. This really is the ultimate in phone video capture. Just the occasional glitch on the main lens using the digital zoom on that 40 megapixel sensor in terms of autofocus. This is at 1 times, and again, so easy just to think what's happening in the distance. And then go to 5 times, and then 10 times. That boat is a good 100 meters away. There's the swan. Lots of detail. Very impressive. Look how far away I was. That's crazy. Underneath this camera platform, which is effectively what it is, a bit like the old Lumia 1020, is a capable modern EMUI skinned Android 9 smartphone. Emotion UI is what it is. I have no issue with the UI tweaks, the launcher, the settings, and everything's to hand. There are still a few duplicates with the Google App Suite, not least gallery versus photos, music versus play music and so on, but nothing a little pruning and sorting wouldn't fix. The display is an excellent 19.5 by 9 AMOLED panel, and the notch is minimal and rarely an issue in daily use. There's a Samsung-like always-on display, though bizarrely it's fully off by default. You have to turn it on. Anyway, simple toggle and you're sorted. While you're in settings, turn on darken interface colours, and all of a sudden many apps are dark and you're saving power. Both of these should be the default, in my humble opinion. Down at the bottom is perhaps my biggest daily bugbear, the optical fingerprint scanner. This illuminates when you lift the phone so that you know where to press your thumb, and it works in just under a second. Usually. It'll work every time for an hour, then suddenly it'll refuse to work at all for multiple attempts. Just as on the recent Samsung Galaxy S10. I think a software update will take this from 90% accuracy, I think, to 99%. And that's probably enough, even for an old-timer like me. Huawei's gesture system involves swiping in from the sides for back, and I just couldn't get on with it, so I reverted back to the old 3-button system. But it's great to have the choice. And when you do opt for the gesture system, you've got the entire display for content, which is super. Charging is very fast if you use Huawei's proprietary charger, up to 4 amps at 10 volts, so 40 watts. Wow. Or 2 amps at 9 volts or 18 watts in a more traditional quick charge setting. All via Type-C, of course, down the bottom. There's Qi charging as well, and reverse charging if needed, and the whole thing is IP68 waterproof and dustproof. Great for a camera-centric device which is likely to get wet, or taken down the beach, for example. It needs to be rugged. In summary though, I'm torn. I always like to have the phone with the best camera system in the world at my disposal, and this is that. But the compromises in terms of speaker, expansion and jack, for me personally, require more thought than simply making this my primary phone. But God knows I'm sorely tempted. Splice in a software update to smooth out image quality between 2 times and 4.9 times zoom, fix any autofocus and colour issues, and my personal tipping point just might be attained. I was gutted when the Samsung Galaxy K Zoom phone was abandoned on Android in 2015. You've seen this before. But with the modern P30 Pro, we've got a lot of the way to the same place without the bulky exterior telescopic optics or a terrible vulnerability of damage and dust. Maybe Huawei would have been better calling this the P30 Zoom, to be honest. If zooming in and out is something you love to do at sports events, watching wildlife, spotting trains, whatever floats your boat, then this is absolutely the best camera phone in the world right now.